You ever get that feeling like something just clicked into place? Like the universe suddenly adjusted its frequency and you're exactly where you need to be at exactly the right moment? That's not coincidence. That's recognition. And if you're watching this right now, if something pulled you here through the endless scroll of distractions and noise, then you're about to understand why timing isn't random. It's intelligent. Most people spend their entire lives waiting for a sign, waiting for clarity, waiting for that perfect moment when everything makes sense. But here's what they don't realize. The signs have been there all along. The clarity has been whispering through every experience, every setback, every moment that felt like chaos, but was actually preparation. And this moment, right here, right now, this is your sign, finally breaking through, loud enough for you to hear it. You didn't stumble upon this video by accident. Your thumb didn't randomly scroll to this exact frame at this exact second. Something deeper orchestrated this meeting between your awareness and these words. Because there's a conversation happening right now that transcends the screen, transcends the noise, transcends everything you think you know about how life works. See, most people live their entire existence believing they're passengers. They think life happens to them, that circumstances control them, that they're victims of timing and chance and other people's decisions. But what if I told you that you've been participating in an intelligence so vast, so precise, that every single moment has been preparing you for this recognition? What if everything that's ever happened to you, including the painful parts, especially the painful parts, has been building toward this exact moment of understanding? Right now, something in your nervous system is responding to these words. Not your analytical mind that's trying to figure out if this makes logical sense, but something deeper, something cellular, something that recognizes truth when it encounters it. That slight shift in your breathing, that feeling of rightness settling into your chest. That's not psychological. That's your system remembering something it forgot. You've been carrying something heavy, haven't you? Not physically, but energetically. That weight that follows you from conversation to conversation, from day to day, from decision to decision. It's like you've been living with background noise for so long that you forgot what silence sounds like. But here's what that weight actually is. It's not your burden to carry. It never was. Every person who's ever made you feel small, every opportunity that slipped away, every time you second-guessed yourself into paralysis, every moment you felt like you were falling behind while everyone else had it figured out, all of that has been teaching you something crucial. Not about failure, not about inadequacy, but about the difference between living from fear and living from trust. And the reason you're here right now is because you're finally ready to learn that difference. There's something shifting in your life right now that you might be interpreting as chaos, relationships changing, old patterns not working anymore, things that used to make sense suddenly feeling foreign. You might be calling it a crisis, a breakdown, a period of confusion. But what if I told you it's actually a recalibration? What if those closed doors, those unexpected changes, those moments when nothing seems to make sense are exactly what needed to happen for you to arrive at this precise moment of possibility? See, your life has been speaking to you in a language most people never learn to understand. It's been dropping clues through your intuition, through those random thoughts that seem to come from nowhere, through the patterns you've been noticing but can't quite explain, dreams that feel more real than reality, conversations that happen at exactly the right moment, people who show up just when you need them most, songs that seem to be speaking directly to your situation. Most people dismiss these as coincidences because they've been taught that life is random, that meaning is something you have to create from scratch. But what if meaning isn't something you create? What if it's something you discover? What if you've been living inside a story so much larger than your individual experience that you can't see the plot from where you're standing? Right now, as these words are reaching you, there's a recognition happening that goes beyond understanding. Your future self has been trying to get your attention. They've been working behind the scenes, arranging synchronicities, creating the conditions that would lead you to this moment. Not tomorrow when you might not be ready. Not yesterday when the window wasn't open. Right now, when your consciousness is perfectly calibrated to receive what needs to be transmitted. You know that restless feeling you've been carrying? That sense that there's something more for you, something bigger, something that actually matches the magnitude of what you feel inside. That's not dissatisfaction. That's not being ungrateful for what you have. That's your soul refusing to settle for a life that's smaller than what you came here to experience. But here's where most people get stuck. They think that feeling means they need to change everything external. New job, new relationship, new city, new identity. They think the answer is in adding something to their life. But what if the answer is in subtracting? What if everything you're looking for is already here, just buried under layers of shoulds and supposed tos and stories about who you think you need to be acceptable? There's a version of you that exists beyond all the roles you play, beyond all the masks you wear, beyond all the ways you've learned to adapt just to survive. And that version of you, they've been quietly waiting, not impatiently, not desperately, but with the kind of calm confidence that comes from knowing that timing is perfect, even when it doesn't feel perfect. The reason you're receiving this message right now is because something fundamental is shifting in how you relate to your own life. You're moving from trying to control outcomes to trusting the process, from forcing doors open to recognizing which ones are meant for you, from performing your worth to simply embodying it. And here's what happens when you make that shift. Everything starts flowing differently, not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally aligned with what was always true. When you stop swimming against the current of your own life, when you stop arguing with reality, when you stop carrying weights that were never yours to hold, something magical happens. You become magnetic to what's actually meant for you. Right now, there are opportunities reorganizing themselves around your new frequency. There are people who've been waiting to meet the version of you that's emerging. There are possibilities that couldn't reach you while you were broadcasting the signal of scarcity, of not enough, of having to prove yourself worthy of good things. But as you step into this recognition, as you start living from trust instead of fear, the world literally reshapes itself to match your new vibration. You've been preparing for this moment your entire life, even when you didn't know that's what was happening. Every time you chose truth over comfort, you were building capacity. Every time you honored your intuition, despite what others might think, you were strengthening your connection to the wisdom that's speaking through these words right now. Every time you chose growth over safety, you were preparing to receive what you're receiving in this moment. But let me tell you what happens next, because this is where most people stumble. They have a moment of recognition like this. They feel the truth of what they're hearing. They sense the possibility opening in front of them, and then they go back to their regular programming. They return to the same conversations, the same patterns, the same ways of being that kept them small in the first place. And within days or weeks, this feeling fades. This clarity gets buried under the noise of daily life. But that's not what's happening here. This isn't motivation that will wear off. This is recognition. And once you truly recognize something, you can't unknow it. The difference is what you do with this recognition. Your only job right now is to stay present with what you know to be true. Not what you think should be true, not what others expect to be true, but what resonates in your body as undeniably real. That feeling of rightness you've been experiencing while listening to this, that's your internal compass recalibrating. That's your system remembering its natural frequency. And as you start living from this frequency, as you start making choices based on what feels authentic rather than what feels safe, reality begins responding differently to you. This is why you were meant to hear this message right now, not because you're broken and need fixing, but because you're whole and ready for remembering. The journey you've been on, the searching you've been doing, the questions you've been asking, they've all led you here to this recognition, to this remembering, to this moment when everything finally makes sense. You don't need to figure out what comes next. You don't need a 10-step plan or a detailed roadmap. You just need to trust what you know. And what you know, deep down beneath all the noise and confusion and second guessing, is that you're exactly where you need to be, exactly when you need to be here, receiving exactly what you need to receive. The most profound changes happen quietly, without fanfare, in moments exactly like this one. Not when you're trying to change, but when you're simply recognizing what's already true. Not when you're fighting against who you've been, but when you're allowing who you're becoming to emerge naturally. So take a breath. Feel the truth of what you've just experienced settling into your cells. Notice how different you feel right now compared to when you first clicked on this video. That difference isn't temporary. That's the new baseline you'll be operating from. You were meant to receive this message at this exact moment, because this exact moment was when you were ready to remember who you really are. Welcome home to yourself. This is your moment. This is your invitation. This is your beginning.